The Smurg by Jessiy, read by LMX Mabella. Chapter 11. Hermione gasped as Prince moved them into a turn, trying to crane her neck around and verify those angry eyes were indeed Azkaban's most notorious. But with the dance floor brimming with full skirts, he slipped away, and she was pretty sure it was Grindelwald. Her heart pounded, and blood flooded her veins, pumping each tube full of adrenaline. She was alert and hopeful for the first time since she took him to prison. Cursing her treacherous body, she nodded her way through the rest of the conversation, barely concealing her intense need to search among the crowd. She was so focused on scanning the masks and eyes of the onlookers, she completely missed a new suitor tapping his way in on her partner's shoulder. "May I cut in?" his familiar voice asked, and she snapped her head around to stare at him and his angry pressed lips, his eyes full of fire and fury. Prince bowed out in annoyance, even as Hermione stood there thrumming with excitement. "Lucky I came out tonight. My bride would have eloped with the first available prick in the receiving line." "I am not your bride," Hermione said, trying to still her racing heart by taking even breath, and yet utterly failing. He slid his open palm around her waist to her back, pulling her into the intense body heat that rolled off him, leaving only inches between them. With his other, he captured her hand and held it gently, caressing the skin under her fingers. "I told you I would come for you." "How did you escape?" she asked quietly. They were not going to rehash everything right there in the middle of a crowded ballroom surrounded by people who would delight in anything and everything scandalous. "Spoilers," he said with a self-deprecating smirk. "Why are you here?" "I had to see you." "But why?" "Because you are the key to everything, my beautiful time traveler." Hermione froze right there on the dance floor, giving him all the confirmation he needed, if he needed any at all. They were nearly run over, and several couples complained their abrupt stop, but Hermione felt dread like a lead weight on the pit of her stomach. "No," she whispered before turning on the balls of her feet. She needed to get out of there. She needed to leave. She needed to strangle someone. Dumbledore, Merope? The only two who knew, and one of them betrayed her to the man she was supposed to hunt in return for Dumbledore claiming Tom. She was 3 steps into the garden when he caught her elbow and forced her to a stop. "I won't tell anyone. Your secret is safe with me." She whirled around, landing her open palm on his cheek, leaving a red print outline of her hand. "How dare you!" she whispered. "Let me go!" "No." Hermione drew her wand out with her stinging hand and pressed the tip against his tender stomach, running through the gamut of nasty spells she had learned over the course of her life in her head. "How?" she asked. "No, never mind. I want to know who told you." "Does it matter?" "You bet your ass it does." "You aren't going to like it." "No shit." "Albus and I have an agreement." "What sort of agreement?" "I leave the UK relatively untouched, avoid him, and never talk about our past. In return, he will tell me things. At first, it was just about Hermione Slytherin. Then it was about the fantastic duel. Before long, I was snowballing and raptured by you. Then the fucking vow. I thought I was going to kill him. I wrote him, called off our agreement, threatened to go public. I wanted him to release you from the vow, you see. Instead, he dropped that bombshell on me. My Hermione was a time traveler. My messages to him were frantic. Were you from the past or the future? But Albus is a sly bastard, and it was enough information to keep our bargain. So here I am, unable to stay away." "Albus Dumbledore?" She should have fucking known. "He has his hands in so many honey jars, you never actually know what he's going to do. Like I said in my tent before you stole my blueprints. You can't trust Albus Dumbledore." It was like a punch to the gut, utter betrayal, and perhaps this was merely a taste of what he had done to Snape. No wonder the man was so bitter. She was on a fast track down the bitter lane herself. How dare he? No matter the fury of fear that threatened to drown her, she was still aware that this was entirely her own fault. "You and he are just different sides of the same coin," Hermione choked out and tried to rip her arm out of his grip. "But you made a bargain with him too," Gellert whispered softly, still holding onto her arm. "But I'm not destroying the world, tearing it all to hell. I'm not the man murdering people in the name of a greater good."
"I am not a monster," he snapped angrily. "I am not out there hurting innocent people."
"Oh, they're just acceptable casualties?" His face hardened.
"Okay, time traveler. Why are you here? To stop me? But wait, your focus was always on Merope. Or should I say a half-breed bastard?"
"You—"
"No," he cut her off. "Let's talk about this. The likelihood that you are from the past is so remote it's almost laughable. And then there was poor raving Septimus Malfoy, who has been telling anyone who listens that a girl just appeared out of nowhere on his family property. So, if you are from the future and you are not here to stop me and you trusted Dumbledore enough to tell him details of your travel, I must not be a threat in your time, although you are not shy about opposing me. So I must reach the conclusion that something happens to me in my movement. Tell me, Hermione, if you weren't here, changing thing, when would I be taken down?"
"Do you really want to know?"
She laughed humorously.
"Fine. What does keeping the secret matter now?"
"Good then, tell me."
"You have less than 10 years of terror before Dumbledore was set to stop you, and even less because I am here. Where I'm from, you'll die old, lonely, impotent in your own fucking prison. And it is Merope's son that does it. You will be a blip in history overshadowed by a boy not yet even born, and he will be dubbed the most dangerous wizard of all time. You were a 6-week course in my 4th year, and you never even made it onto the final test." He froze. Not a thought or feeling passed over his face, not a single finger twitch. He stared at her, searching her eyes as if he could catch her in a lie. But even he could see the open, honest malice between them.
"Do I make any difference at all?"
"You make that boy's path to power easier. When you were taking down, there was a power vacuum allowing him to rise and succeed where you had fallen."
"There was never a chance for us then. I thought you were here to change things. I was certain of it, and you were. But I was mistaken, too. I thought you were here to change me."
"Would it have mattered if I was? You, Gellert Grindelwald, will never change."
He wheeled back as if she had hit him again. "Well, if I only have 10 years, I better make the most of them."
"I'm here now, and I won't let this go on for another 10 years.
"You will kill me, then. Or wait until I've built my own prison. But wait, didn't you steal the blueprints? How am I supposed to build my own coffin now?"
"You're right. I should have let you build it."
He nodded as if deciding something. "I don't need those blueprints. I never needed them."
He leaned in, angrier than she ever saw him.
"I have created a far better prison than the one you possess, and this time I will build it in a way so that I draw power from it, so that I cannot be held in it. Good luck fulfilling your vow now, Hermione. And one more thing." He sneered inches from her gloriously livid face. "Are you even a Slytherin?"
Her face twisted with terrible violence, wrenched her arms from his grip and apparated away, right in front of his eyes. Hermione landed with a pop, standing directly outside of the gates of Hogwarts.
"Can I help you?"
the caretaker asked.
"I'm here for Albus Dumbledore."
"You may leave, Eustace. I felt her at the gates."
Albus casually dismissed the caretaker with only an additional nod.
"Of course, Deputy Headmaster."
Once the caretaker was far enough away to give them privacy, Dumbledore's mild-tempered face turned furious.
"What is the meaning of this, Hermione? This is a school."
"You fucking liar! You told Gellert I should skin you alive."
"I had no choice."
"Don't talk to me about bloody choices."
"I see you are very angry right now. Go home, calm down, and I will see you this weekend when I come to visit my wife."
"Release me from my vow."
"No."
"You would see me slowly waste away and die from the unfulfillment of it?"
"I am holding up my end of the bargain, as should you."
"Don't make me laugh. I could have for months that something wasn't right."
Hermione stopped and gripped the iron bars of the gate, clenching them until her knuckles turned white.
"Merope knows, doesn't she? She found out, and ever since then you have been fighting, but she didn't want to worry me. Of course, you bloody bastard."
"Now, see here." Hermione took out her wand and held it aloft.
"If you don't release me from my vow, I will cut you off at the knees. I know just so much about Ariana's death as you or Gellert. I know about everything."
Keeping a secret was never part of our bargain, and so help me, I will cut you off from Tom if you even think about going public with it," Dumbledore warned.
"Right," Hermione said woodenly. This was not the end. She was done. Done with him. Done with everything. Slowly she retreated from the gate, and the moment she cleared the wards, she was gone. Hermione's nostrils flared like a raging beast as she veritably stormed her way into the house. "What's wrong? Did something happen at the ball?" Merope asked when Hermione slammed the door behind her. "You knew Albus was sending Grindelwald messages and you didn't tell me," Hermione said, hurt and angry enough to explode like an eruption horn. Merope pinched her lips together and dropped all facade. "I caught him at it one night in Paris. Seemed to think I should be fine with it, that I should be obedient and keep his secrets. Don't get me wrong, he's a wonderful husband. He dotes on me, is excited about Tom, gives me anything I ask for, but his treatment of you broke my faith in him." "Why didn't you say anything? You knew how hard I tried to honor the vow, to honor the promise that I made to create a better world. Why?" "Because there was nothing I could do to stop him, and I didn't want to see you like this. The only reason I didn't tell you is that Albus assured me he would never give Grindelwald information that would affect the reason you came back." "Family does not keep secrets." "Grow up, Hermione! Everyone keeps secrets of some sort. I was trying to protect you. You are one of the most important people in my life. I couldn't bear it if you let me alone because you hated my husband. A wizard's marriage, as you know, has very few loopholes." "Well, Albus told Gellert everything he could ever want to know. He told them that I'm a time traveler." Merope's hand flew up to cover her mouth, her eyes wide and filled with tears. "No." Hermione sighed, and all the fight left her, collapsing into the nearest chair. "I tried to get him to let me out of the vow. He refused." "Hermione," she said, kneeling down next to her and taking her hands in between her own, rubbing them as if they lacked warmth. Perhaps they did. Hermione was too numb to notice. "I don't even know how to move forward from this," Hermione whispered, bone-weary and depressed. "We will figure it out." "I saved Tom," Hermione rambled, ignoring Merope. "I've already done what I set out to do. I'm not God. I'm not all-knowing. I do not see this new and hopefully improved future. Fate will carry out the rest. I just can't anymore." "Jasper!" Merope called, and for the first time she was afraid. Afraid at the utter defeat in Hermione's voice. Something that she had never heard before.
"Mrs. Dumbledore?"
Jasper said with a bow, eyeing his mistress with an overwhelming concern. Merope gestured widely at Hermione, clearly lost for words. Jasper nodded, and using elf magic, took her upstairs and put her to bed. The next day, Hermione woke slowly, blinking away the morning sunshine. She sighed and turned her head the opposite way, remembering the betrayal she had endured the night before. Why she didn't see Dumbledore's betrayal coming a mile away, she never knew. It wasn't like he was the moral upstanding pillar of light he was purported to be. And she knew that. She knew that. What was she going to do? How was she going to move forward with this? First of all, though Merope's knowing stung worse than any of it, she would forgive Merope. At least in her case, the deception was with a good heart. Merope was a good sort, and Hermione fully believed in the strength of their sisterhood. Dumbledore, though, he was going to meet the business end of her wand. Maybe not this day, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not even next year, but she would be waiting for the moment to strike. She had no doubt now that he would let her down and let Tom down by extension, and she would be ready. Now to the biggest, hairiest part of the betrayal. Grindelwald now knew that she was a time traveler, that she was future-born. He apparently had known ever since she had started hunting him after Merope got married. It would make sense why he grilled her in his tent about Merope and Hermione's activities that started only after she walked into Gringotts. He wasn't wrong, but she had credited him with a superior intellect. He may be smart, but he wouldn't even have suspected she was a time traveler without Dumbledore leaking the information. After all, the simplest explanation is usually correct, and it was easy to credit her as a witch who lived and was schooled abroad. Either way, she didn't know what her best course of action was. Did she continue to follow through with the vow and hunt Grindelwald until he was stopped? Or should she resist as a show to Dumbledore that she would not be manhandled and manipulated? He would not use Tom against her as a means to control her. Part of her wanted to continue the hunt, but a bigger part of her worried that if she didn't curtail Dumbledore as soon as possible, she would regret it in the long run. It would be a devastating strike if she successfully blocked her from Tom's life. In the end, it was Merope who made up her mind. Merope knocked on the door and peeked inside, unsure of her welcome. "Are you awake?" Merope murmured. "Yeah, come in." Hermione sat up on the bed and rubbed her face and running her fingers through the tangles of her curls. "Are you okay?" "Not really," Hermione said as she patted the bed next to her, and Merope visibly relaxed. "Anything I can do?" "When I threatened Albus with exposure, he threatened my access to Tom. So now I am wondering if I should continue to follow through with the vow or curtail your husband." "He did he?" Merope said dangerously. Hermione said. "I'm really not sure what the best move would be." "Well, as long as I'm alive, you will have access to Tom. You're his family, my sister. Maybe not by blood, but you have done more for us than anyone, and I claim you. You are my family. Not even Albus could stop it. And if something were to happen to me, your vow would be nullified." "But you would still be Tom's father." "And you can better believe that I will make my wishes known. After I find out about what Albus had done, I contacted a solicitor in London to look after the interests of any children I may bear, with or without Albus. I have set into motion that he will not be able to cut you off from them, bearing reasonable and documented proof of abuse." Hermione closed her eyes and a tear escaped, cascading down her cheek. She had been protected by Merope so much more than she ever anticipated. How did you do that?" "By legally binding you to me as my sister." She smiled and clasped Hermione's hand. Hermione snorted. "How's that even possible?" "My father and I came to an understanding. Though you are keeping your name, we have adopted you into the Gaunt family." "How the hell did you get him to agree to that?" "I gave him back the ring." "Merope." "This was more important to me than any heirlooms. Besides, I still have the locket." Merope lifted the heavy necklace out of her robes to show Hermione the proof of her words. "If anything happens to both Albus and I, would you take care of the children? I was going to ask you on Saturday at the family luncheon, but I think now is the perfect time to talk about it." "I would be honored," Hermione said. "So you forgive me?" "I had already forgiven you, Merope. I may be furious at Albus, but that will not change our relationship." "Thank Merlin," Merope breathed and flung her pregnant self at Hermione, wrapping her in a hug. And just like that, Merope protected Hermione from her own husband, freeing Hermione up once more for the hunt. "Now, on to other business. Can you please explain to me why Magnus Prince is in our parlor waiting for you as he were courting you?" "Oh, hell," Hermione mumbled as Merope pulled away and smoothed her belly as Tom flipped inside. "I think I may have agreed. I'd seen Gellert in the crowd, and I think I just nodded along to everything after that. I completely lost my head. What do I do?" "Why don't you go out with him? What would be the worst that could happen?" Hermione laughed. Almost all of her feelings and thoughts about the man were because he resembled and sounded so much like her former potions professor. Magnus Prince seemed to be self-serving and arrogant, but he was no more stalking her than Gellert was. Perhaps she should give him a chance. After all, he did act a gentleman at the ball, and to be fair, she didn't really know him. All right. I guess one date wouldn't hurt anything." She said this even though she knew it probably wouldn't work out. Her skin didn't leap at his touch or her blood pound at his nearness, nor did she get excited the way she did with Gellert. But if she didn't try to get over Gellert, she never would. One small step in the right direction was still a step after all. Merope beamed and stood, nearly running to Hermione's wardrobe. She pulled out robe after robe that was much too fleshy for usual day wear and tossed them aside on the bed before landing on something she approved of. It was a simple gown that wrapped around her body and draped down in the back, baring her shoulder blades. "This should do," Merope sang, hanging it on the outside of the wardrobe. "Now hop in the shower, and I will keep your suitor occupied until you're ready." "Thanks," Hermione mumbled, rolling her eyes. 15 minutes later, Hermione walked down the stairs to a smirking Merope and 2 angry men. Magnus Prince and Gellert Grindelwald. Jasper stood quietly disapproving behind them all. Hermione paused at the landing. She couldn't fucking believe it. And why was Gellert even in her house after the hate-filled words they shouted at each other at the ball? Didn't he have grand plans to build a better, less coffin-like Nurmengard? "You have another visitor," Merope said, struggling to keep her humor in check. "Yeah," Hermione said. "Thanks." Prince looked up at her with glittering confidence, but she only had eyes for him, and he for her. Tangible anger rolled off him and it made him seem more menacing than Hermione had ever seen him. Hermione nodded at Prince, all the while keeping her gaze on Grindelwald. Merope, the wonderful sister she was, grabbed onto Prince's arm and pulled him into the other room, leaving Grindelwald and Hermione alone. "What are you doing here? I thought you intended on making a better prison than the one I have the blueprints for."
"Is what that bloody R says true? Did you say yes to his suit?"
"What do you care?" He took a step onto the first stair, then the next, and then the next, until they were eye level.
"Don't choose him."
Hermione closed her eyes and set her jaw, clenching her teeth together in an unhealthy way.
"Why do you care?" "You know why,"
he murmured, reaching out for her. She smacked his hand away.
"We can never be anything, Gellert, and you already know why. But while we are here, your anger seems to have cooled quite fast."
Gellert smiled, showing his boundless charm.
"That's how I am, love. Quick to anger, quick to cool."
He looked down at their feet and dropped a smile, shifting from one foot to the next.
"I meant it, you know, last night. I won't say a word to anyone."
"How very gallant." The smile was back on his lips and her heart beat just a little bit faster.
"Indeed."
"Did you want to say anything else?"
"I just wanted you to know that I listened when you told me of my future and the future of my movement."
"And?"
"I'm thinking about things."
"Really?" she said skeptically. He chuckled and lifted her knuckles to his lips.
"Yes, really."
To be continued. Thank you for listening to this chapter of The Smurg by Jessiy, read by Ella Max Mabella. If you would like to stay up to date on upcoming chapters and stories, you can follow me on YouTube, Spotify, AO3, Instagram, or Tumblr.